I walked into my apartment and froze, my heart pounding in my chest. My mother stood there, flames licking a large check in a trash can, my $2.5 million lottery check, or so she thought. Her face was set, determined, as if she could burn away my choices. My father watched, his eyes cold, unyielding, like a judge passing sentence. They wanted to force my hand, to make me bend to their will. This wasn't just about money, it was about control. My life had changed overnight, but nothing prepared me for this betrayal from the people I called family. My father's voice cut through the crackling flames. If you won't share, you get nothing. His words were a blade, meant to slice through my resolve. They thought they'd won, that I'd crumble under their audacity. But as the ashes fell, something inside me shifted. I laughed, a sharp, defiant sound that startled them. Their smug faces faltered, confusion replacing certainty. They didn't know the check was just a prop, a hollow symbol. The real money was safe, untouchable. In that moment, their power over me burned to nothing, and I felt a freedom I'd never known before. What would you do if your family turned on you over money? Would you fight, or would you break? I'm Emily Harper, and this is my story, a tale of a lottery win that promised freedom but brought betrayal instead. I'd spent years building a life on my own, always in the shadow of my sister, Lauren, the golden child. When I won $2.5 million, I thought it was my turn to shine. But my family had other plans. Their actions pushed me to the edge, but what happened next? It's a twist they never saw coming. To understand why my parents thought they could burn my future and win, you need to know where this all began. Picture a middle-class house in Columbus, Ohio, where I grew up invisible, always second best. My sister Lauren was the star, her every whim celebrated, while I fought for scraps of attention. That dynamic shaped me, taught me resilience, but also left scars. When the lottery changed everything, I thought my family might finally see me. Instead, it exposed their true colors. Let's go back to the beginning, to the house where I learned I'd always be less. I grew up in a modest house in Columbus, Ohio, where the world felt small and predictable. Our middle-class neighborhood was all tidy lawns and cul-de-sacs, the kind of place where kids rode bikes until dusk. But inside our home, things were less idyllic. My sister, Lauren, 4 years younger, was the center of everything. From the moment she was born, she shone brighter than I ever could. My parents weren't cruel. They provided food, clothes, a roof. But their love came with a hierarchy. Lauren was the star, the golden child whose every whim was a priority. I was the afterthought, the one expected to figure things out on my own. By the time I was 10, I knew my place, second best, always hustling for scraps of attention. It wasn't just about favoritism. It was a quiet message that my dreams didn't matter as much. That house shaped me, taught me to work harder, to prove myself. But it also left a weight I carried for years, a sense that no matter what I did, I'd never be enough. That's where this story begins, in the shadows of someone else's light. Lauren was the family's pride, her every step celebrated like a victory parade. When she wanted art classes at 8, my parents scraped together the money, even if it meant skipping bills. Her watercolor paintings hung like trophies on our living room walls, each one a reminder of her specialness. Meanwhile, I needed a graphing calculator for my advanced math class in high school. I worked double shifts at a local diner, scrubbing tables until midnight to afford it. My straight-A report cards, they'd get a nod, maybe a good job, Emily, before my mom gushed. But have you seen Lauren's latest sketch? It stung, but I swallowed the hurt. When Lauren flitted between hobbies, ballet, piano, photography, my parents funded each one without question. My academic wins, like making honor roll or winning a math competition, were met with distracted smiles. I wasn't invisible, but I was never the focus. By college, Lauren dropped out to find herself, and my parents paid her rent through 3 failed majors. I juggled 2 jobs, kept my scholarship, and still graduated with $50,000 in student loans. The imbalance wasn't just unfair, it was a constant, gnawing reminder that my efforts were less valued. I loved my family, but their love came with conditions I could never meet. That dynamic built resilience in me, but it also planted seeds of resentment I didn't fully acknowledge until later. One memory cuts deeper than the rest: my senior prom. I was 17, saving every penny from my diner job for a dress. I'd eye the clearance rack at the mall, finally picking a simple blue gown for $200. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine, earned through late nights and sore feet. Meanwhile, Lauren, just 13, got a $500 designer dress for her middle school dance, paid for by mom and dad without a second thought. I overheard them at dinner, joking about how Lauren deserved to shine. I stood there, clutching my clearance dress, feeling like a ghost in my own home. That night, I cried in my room, not just for the dress, but for the years of being overlooked. But instead of breaking, I turned inward. Math became my rebellion, my way to prove I was more than their afterthought. I'd stay up late, solving equations, chasing perfect scores. My teachers noticed. One even called me a quiet genius. That led to a partial scholarship, though it wasn't enough to cover everything. I still took out loans, worked weekends, and graduated with debt hanging over me. Lauren's path was different. Her failures cushioned, her dreams bankrolled. When she crashed her first car, my parents replaced it. When I needed a used sedan to get to work, I paid the down payment myself. Those years taught me to rely on myself, but they also left scars. I carried a silent anger, not just at my parents, but at Lauren for basking in their favoritism without question. Yet, I also felt guilt for resenting her. She was just a kid too, shaped by the same warped dynamic. Looking back, I see how those moments, prom, scholarships, late-night shifts, built the strength I'd need later. They taught me to stand alone, to value my own worth, even when my family didn't. That resilience would become my lifeline when everything changed. That Tuesday felt like any other, heavy with the grind of routine. I was 28, a marketing assistant in Columbus, Ohio, scraping by with student loans that clung to me like a shadow. On my way home, I stopped at a gas station, mentally calculating how much I could spend until payday. The cashier's line was long, the air thick with impatience. On a whim, I added a $2 lottery ticket to my purchase. I rarely played, maybe twice a year when jackpots made headlines, but something nudged me that day. "You never know," the cashier said with a grin. "Lightning has to strike somewhere," I replied, tucking the ticket into my wallet without a second thought. That night, I was half watching TV, heating up leftover pasta, scrolling through my phone. The lottery drawing flickered on, numbers rolling across the screen. I grabbed my ticket, expecting the usual letdown. Maybe one number if I was lucky. The first number matched. Then the second. My heart started to race. Third number, a match. Fourth. Fifth. When the sixth number hit, I stopped breathing. I checked again, then again, convinced I'd misread. All 6 numbers stared back at me. The jackpot was $2.5 million. I sat frozen, the weight of it sinking in. My hands shook as I stared at the ticket, a fragile slip of paper that held a new life. Was this real? Could something this big happen to someone like me, who'd spent years fighting for every small win? The world felt still, like it was holding its breath with me, waiting for what came next. I couldn't trust my own eyes. My hands were trembling, so hard I could barely hold my phone as I dialed Sarah, my best friend since college. "You need to come over now," I managed to say, my voice small, almost afraid to speak the truth aloud. "And what's wrong?" "Are you okay?" she asked, worry sharp in her tone. I couldn't answer, just stammered, "Please, just come." 20 minutes later, Sarah burst through my door, her eyes wide with concern. Wordlessly, I handed her the ticket and a scrap of paper with the numbers I'd scribbled from the broadcast. "Check these," I whispered, my voice barely steady. "I think I'm losing it." Sarah's fingers flew over her phone, pulling up the lottery website. She compared the numbers, her breath catching. "Holy crap, Emily," she said, her voice rising. "This is real. You won $2.5 million. I shook my head, still not believing. "Check again. Please." She did, her eyes darting between the ticket and her screen. "It's real, Em. You're a millionaire." The words hit like a wave, exhilarating and terrifying. We sat there, staring at the ticket, the room heavy with disbelief. Sarah grabbed my hand, grounding me. "What does this mean for you?" she asked softly. I didn't have an answer yet, but my mind was racing, paying off my $50,000 in student loans, escaping my cramped apartment, maybe even seeing the world. That night, we talked until dawn, mapping out dreams I'd never dared to voice. But beneath the excitement, a quiet fear stirred. Would this change everything, not just for me, but with everyone around me? I wasn't ready for what was coming. The next morning, I called in sick, my head still spinning. Sarah drove me to the state lottery commission, my nerves too frayed to trust myself behind the wheel. I clutched the ticket, now sealed in a Ziploc bag, tucked inside my purse like a fragile relic. At the office, officials verified my ticket and identity, their voices calm but firm. "Congratulations, Miss Harper," one said, sliding a folder across the desk. "Your jackpot is $2.5 million. After taxes, the lump sum is approximately $1.4 million. The number landed like a stone, life-changing, but less than I'd imagined. They explained my options, lump sum or annuity, and arranged a photo with a giant check for their press release. I smiled for the cameras, but inside I was reeling. Alone that night, I sat on my couch, the ticket hidden in a book for safekeeping. My mind wandered to what this meant. I could pay off my student loans, erase the debt that had weighed me down for years. I pictured a house, not a mansion, but a cozy home with a yard, a place that was mine. I saw myself traveling, maybe to New Zealand, a dream I'd buried under years of scraping by. But doubt crept in. I'd read stories of lottery winners, losing everything to scams or bad choices. I spent hours online, researching how to protect myself, confirming the lottery's legitimacy. The fear was real. What if I messed this up? What if this gift became a curse? I thought of my family, how they'd react. Would they finally see me, or would this widen the gap between us? I wanted to believe they'd be happy for me, but a knot in my stomach warned otherwise. This wasn't just about money, it was about who I'd become. For the first time, I felt the weight of possibility, but also the shadow of what it might cost me. I wasn't just holding a ticket, I was holding a choice. Sunday dinners at my parents' house in Columbus were a ritual I kept out of duty, not joy. The table was set with the same chipped plates, the same tension simmering beneath polite chatter. That night, I arrived with a secret too big to hold, my heart pounding with a mix of excitement and dread. I'd won $2.5 million in the lottery, a life-changing sum that could erase my struggles. As we sat down to eat, I took a deep breath, my hands trembling under the table. "I have some news," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Last week, I won the lottery. All 6 numbers. It's $2.5 million. The room went silent, forks frozen midair. For a moment, I thought they might be proud, might see me for once. Then my father spoke, his tone sharp. "The lottery? You mean like a few bucks?" I shook my head. "No, Dad. The state lottery. $2.5 million. My mother gasped, her eyes wide, and for a fleeting second, I saw something like joy. She rushed over, hugging me, a rare gesture in our family. "Emily, that's unbelievable," she said. But before I could savor it, the air shifted. My father leaned forward, his voice calculating. "This is perfect timing. Lauren's in a bind with her business." My stomach nodded. Lauren, my sister, hadn't even arrived yet, but already the conversation wasn't about me. My mother nodded eagerly. "Wait until Lauren hears. She's been struggling with her boutique." I tried to steer it back. "I haven't even got the money yet," I said carefully. "There's a process, and I need to talk to financial advisors." My father frowned. "What's there to process? Your sister needs help, and you've got millions." My mother's tone turned sharp. "Don't be selfish, Emily. Family helps family." I sat there, food untouched, as their words pressed against me. I dreamed of this moment, sharing something huge, hoping they'd celebrate me. Instead, It was already about Lauren, the golden child, whose problems always came first. The joy of my win was slipping away, replaced by a familiar ache. I wanted their love, not their demands, but I was starting to see that love came with strings I'd never noticed before. Lauren swept into the dining room, fashionably late as always, her perfume trailing like a statement. "Sorry, traffic was awful," she said, sliding into her seat. My mother couldn't wait. "Emily won the lottery, Lauren. $2.5 million. Lauren's eyes lit up, but not with the surprise I'd hoped for. Her smile was quick, calculated. "That's amazing, Em," she said, hugging me with an enthusiasm that felt forced. "We're gonna have so much fun with this." That word, "we," hit like a warning. Before I could respond, my father jumped in. "Tell her about your situation, Lauren." She looked embarrassed, but only slightly. "It's not a big deal," she said, waving a hand. "My boutique's just hit a rough patch. Some credit card debt, an inventory loan." My father cut in, his voice firm. "It's $25,000, Lauren, and growing. Emily, this is your chance to step up." I stared at them, my food cold on the plate. Lauren leaned forward, her tone sweet but edged. "If I'd won, I'd share with you, no question." The hypocrisy was almost laughable. 3 years ago, Lauren inherited $10,000 from our grandmother. Did she offer me a cent? No. She blew it on a luxury trip to Bali, posting selfies while I worked overtime to cover my student loans. I took a breath, steadying myself. "I haven't made any decisions yet," I said. "This just happened, and I need time to think." My mother's face hardened. "Think. Your sister's business could be her big break. You can spare a little." A little? $25,000 wasn't pocket change, not even with $2.5 million. I pushed back, my voice firm. "What about my loans? My $50,000 in debt? I've been living paycheck to paycheck. Don't I deserve to take care of myself first?" Lauren's expression turned wounded, practiced. "I can't believe you're being like this," she said. "I'd never do this to you." My father's voice grew cold. "Family doesn't hoard, Emily." The rest of the dinner was a blur of guilt trips and demands. I left that night, my win tainted, the weight of their expectations heavier than ever. I loved them, but I was starting to see how their love twisted into control, how my victory was becoming their opportunity. The days after that dinner felt like a siege. My phone buzzed relentlessly, each call and text a reminder that my family wasn't letting go. My mother called the next morning, her voice bright but insistent. "Emily, I've been thinking," she said. "You were overwhelmed last night, and that's understandable. But now you've had time to sleep on it. Helping Lauren is the right thing. Family supports family." I pinched the bridge of my nose, a headache forming. "Mom, it's barely 7:30. I'm getting ready for work. Can we talk later?" Her tone sharpened. "What's there to talk about? Your sister's drowning, and you're sitting on millions." I ended the call, silencing my phone, but the pressure didn't stop. By lunch, I had 3 missed calls from her, 2 from my father, and a text from Lauren, her words dripping with fake warmth. "Hey, Em, I get that you need time to process. No pressure, but I've got spreadsheets showing what I need to clear my debts and make the boutique profitable. Love you." I stared at the red heart emoji, my stomach twisting. That evening, my father left a voicemail, his voice hard. "Emily, your mother's upset by your attitude. We raised you better. Call us back so we can discuss how you'll help Lauren." I didn't reply. Instead, I met with a financial advisor, trying to focus on my future, but their words echoed, clawing at my resolve. The next day, it got worse. My mother sent a group text, including my father and Lauren. "We're meeting tomorrow at 7 to discuss the family financial plan, now that Emily's come into this blessing. Bring your paperwork, Emily, so we know the timeline." The audacity stunned me. They'd scheduled a meeting to divvy up my money without asking. I replied, my fingers shaking. "My financial decisions are mine. I won't be there." My father's response was immediate, a voicemail dripping with anger. "This is unacceptable, Emily. After everything we've done, this is how you repay us. I'm disappointed. Lauren tried a softer approach, her text long and emotional. I'm devastated you're shutting me out. My boutique is my dream, Em. Just $25,000 could save it, and I'd pay you back someday. Pay me back. She'd never paid for anything herself. I sat in my apartment, the walls closing in, their voices a chorus of guilt and entitlement. I wanted to scream, to tell them how unfair it felt, how my win was becoming their weapon. But I stayed silent, knowing words wouldn't change them. This wasn't about love, it was about control, and I was starting to see how far they'd go to keep it. It was a Wednesday, just past noon, when I came home during my lunch break. My apartment was my sanctuary, a small space I'd carved out after years of scraping by. I'd been dodging my family's calls since that tense Sunday dinner, their demands for my $2.5 million lottery win growing louder each day. I needed a moment to breathe, to think about my future. But as I turned the key and pushed open the door, my heart stopped. My mother stood in my living room, a metal trash can in front of her, flames curling inside. My father stood nearby, his face hard, unyielding, like a man who'd already made up his mind. The air smelled of burning paper, sharp and acrid. I saw it then, the oversized ceremonial check from the lottery office, the one I'd kept as a memento, now reduced to curling, blackened edges. My mother's eyes met mine, defiant, almost righteous. "You left us no choice, Emily," she said, her voice steady but cold. My father stepped forward, his words cutting deeper than the flames. "If you won't share with Lauren, you get nothing. This ends now." I stood frozen, my bag slipping from my shoulder. They'd used a spare key, one I'd given my mother years ago for emergencies, to invade my home, my life. This wasn't just about money. It was about control, about punishing me for daring to say no. My chest tightened, a storm of emotions swirling inside me. Part of me wanted to scream, to demand how they could betray me like this. Another part felt the weight of years in their shadow, always the one who had to bend. They thought this would break me, force me to hand over the money to save Lauren's failing boutique. My mother tossed another piece of paper into the fire, her gaze unwavering. "You can't just walk away from family," she said. My father nodded, his voice low. "You've had your fun, Emily. Now do what's right." I stared at the ashes, my mind racing. They thought they'd won, that they'd burned my future. But they didn't know the truth, and that truth was about to change everything. As the flames died down in that trash can, something inside me shifted. My parents stood there, smug, certain they forced my hand. My mother's lips curled into a faint smile, as if she'd done me a favor. My father's eyes were locked on me, waiting for me to crumble, to beg for their forgiveness and hand over the money. But instead of breaking, I felt a spark ignite. A laugh escaped me, sharp, raw, almost foreign to my own ears. It startled them, their confidence faltering. "What's so funny?" my mother snapped, her voice sharp with unease. I stepped closer, my heart pounding but my voice steady. "You think you burned my future?" I said, meeting their eyes. "That check." It was a prop, a piece of paper from the lottery office for photos. The real money is electronic, safe in my account, where you can't touch it. Their faces changed in an instant. My mother's smugness drained, her eyes wide with shock. My father's jaw tightened, his hands clenching as if he could still grasp control. The room felt heavier, the silence thick with their disbelief. They'd broken into my home, violated my trust, thinking they could bend me to their will. But they'd miscalculated. I'd been one step ahead, securing the funds the moment I'd claimed the prize. I'd read enough horror stories about lottery wins gone wrong, families turning on each other, scams tearing lives apart. So I protected myself, moving the money to a secure account, keeping the details locked away. My parents didn't know that, and their ignorance was my power. "You thought you could force me?" I said, my voice low but firm. "You thought burning a fake check would make me give in?" My mother stammered, "Emily, we were just trying to," but I cut her off. "No, you were trying to control me like always." My father's face reddened, but he said nothing, the weight of their failure settling in. For the first time, I saw them not as parents, but as people who'd let entitlement blind them. The ashes in the trash can weren't my dreams, they were theirs. I stood taller, my laughter fading into resolve. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about who I was and who I refused to be. I pointed to the door, my voice steady but cold. Get out, now, or I call the police. My mother's face crumpled, not with regret, but with the shock of being challenged. Emily, how dare you speak to us like that? She said, her voice trembling with indignation. My father took a step toward me, his tone menacing. You're making a mistake, young lady. We're your family. But I held my ground, my heart racing but my resolve unbroken. You broke into my home. You try to destroy my future. You're not my family right now, you're intruders. The word hung in the air, heavy and final. Outside, I caught a glimpse of Lauren through the window, pacing near her car. She hadn't come inside, but her presence felt like another layer of betrayal. Did Lauren know? I demanded, my eyes locked on my mother. She hesitated, then looked away. She's worried about you, she said weakly. She didn't want this. But Lauren's guilty glance through the glass told a different story. I felt a surge of rage, not just at my parents, but at the years of her taking without giving, of being the golden child who never questioned her privilege. A neighbor's shadow moved in the hallway, their curiosity adding a sting of public humiliation to my parents' actions. You did this in front of people, I said, my voice shaking with anger. You thought you could shame me into giving you what you want. My father's shoulders slumped, the fight draining from him. My mother clutched the edge of the trash can, as if it could anchor her fading authority. We just wanted what's best for Lauren, she whispered. And what about me? I shot back, the question I'd held in for years, finally breaking free. When has it ever been about me? They had no answer, their silence louder than any argument. I opened the door, my hand steady now. Leave. And don't come back until you can respect me. They shuffled out, my mother's eyes glistening with unshed tears, my father's face a mask of defeat. As the door closed, a strange calm settled over me. Rage had burned hot, but now there was relief, a clarity I hadn't expected. They couldn't touch me anymore. Not my money, not my choices, not my worth. I stood in my quiet apartment, the ashes in the trash can a symbol of their failure, not mine. But as the adrenaline faded, a pang of grief crept in. They were my family, flawed and human, and part of me still loved them. Yet I knew this moment was a turning point. I'd chosen myself, and that choice would shape everything that came next. After that day, the ashes in my trash can, my parents' stunned faces as they left my apartment, I knew I couldn't stay still. Their betrayal wasn't just a violation of my home, it was a wake-up call. I'd won $2.5 million, but I wouldn't let it slip through my fingers because of their demands. The first thing I did was move. I found a new apartment in a secure building across town, one with cameras and a doorman, a place where spare keys wouldn't haunt me. I changed every lock, every password, my heart racing as I reclaimed my space. Next, I met with my financial advisor, a calm woman who laid out my options for the $1.4 million lump sum after taxes. Protect it, she said, and I listened. I set up accounts with layers of security, ensuring no one could touch what was mine. Then came the moment I dreamed of, paying off my $50,000 student loans. I sat in my new apartment, staring at the confirmation email, a weight lifting from my shoulders. For the first time in years, I was free from debt, free from the grind that had defined my life. With the advisor's help, I bought a modest 3-bedroom house in a quiet Columbus suburb, a home with a garden, a place to build a future. It wasn't flashy, but it was mine, earned through years of struggle and sealed by this one. I'd spent my life in the background, always second to Lauren, but now I was writing my own story. My parents kept calling, their voicemails a mix of guilt and anger, but I didn't answer. I wasn't running from them. I was choosing myself, something I'd never been allowed to do. The money gave me options, but the courage to act came from within. I'd been pushed to the edge, and instead of falling, I'd found my footing. This wasn't about revenge. It was about survival, about building a life where I could finally breathe. With my future secured, I wanted to do more than just protect myself. I wanted to build something meaningful. I'd always believed knowledge could change lives, so I started a financial literacy foundation. It was small at first, offering workshops for young adults like me, people drowning in debt or living paycheck to paycheck. I'd been there, scraping by, and I knew how empowering it felt to take control. I poured my heart into it, hiring educators to teach budgeting, saving, and investing. Standing in a classroom, watching students nod as they learned, I felt a purpose I'd never known. But my family didn't stop. Their texts kept coming, relentless. My mother wrote, "You're tearing us apart, Emily. Help Lauren, and we'll be a family again." My father's messages were colder. "You owe us for raising you." Lauren's were the worst, full of fake tears. "I miss you, Em. Why are you doing this?" Each one stung, but I saw them for what they were, attempts to pull me back into their orbit. I blocked their numbers, my finger trembling but resolute. It wasn't easy. Guilt gnawed at me, whispering that I was cruel, selfish. But I reminded myself, I wasn't abandoning them. I was protecting my peace. Setting boundaries wasn't about cutting them out forever. It was about demanding respect. My foundation grew, and so did my confidence. I wasn't just helping others. I was healing myself, proving I could create something good without their approval. My parents thought burning that check would break me, but it did the opposite. It showed me who they were and who I could be. I'd spent years bending to their expectations, but no more. The money was a tool, but the real power came from saying no, from choosing my path. I was building a life rooted in purpose, not obligation, and for the first time, I felt like I was enough. The weight of my family's betrayal didn't vanish with new locks or a new home. It lingered, a quiet ache that followed me. So I started therapy, sitting across from a woman with kind eyes who helped me untangle the mess inside. "You're allowed to feel guilty and still hold your boundaries," she said in our first session. Those words were a lifeline. I talked about my childhood, always in Lauren's shadow, and how my parents' actions made me question my worth. Therapy wasn't a quick fix, but it gave me tools to face the pain. I learned that love doesn't mean sacrificing yourself, that family doesn't get a free pass to hurt you. One afternoon, as I left a session, my Aunt Margaret confronted me outside a coffee shop. Her face was flushed, her voice loud enough to turn heads. "You're tearing this family apart, Emily," she shouted. "Lauren's struggling, and you're hoarding millions like some cold-hearted stranger." I froze, the old instinct to shrink rising. But then I remembered my therapist's words. Boundaries are self-respect. I straightened, my voice calm but firm. "Aunt Margaret, I'm protecting my peace. Lauren's choices aren't my responsibility, and neither are yours." She blinked, stunned, as if no one had ever spoken back to her. "You'll regret this," she spat. But I walked away, my heart pounding but steady. That confrontation wasn't just with her, it was with the part of me that still craved approval. Therapy helped me see that guilt was normal, but it didn't mean I was wrong. My family's demands were about their needs, not my failures. I kept building my foundation, finding joy in small victories, like a student who paid off her first credit card. I wasn't perfect. Some nights I cried, missing the family I wished I had. But I was learning to choose myself, to trust my worth. That choice wasn't just about money, it was about freedom, and I was finally claiming it. Months after I'd cut contact, the silence with my family felt both heavy and freeing. I'd built a new life with my lottery winnings, but the ache of their betrayal lingered. Then one day Lauren reached out, not with demands, but with something new, humility. She asked to meet at a quiet cafe, her text tentative, almost nervous. I hesitated, the memory of her waiting outside my apartment that day still sharp. But something in her words felt different, so I agreed. Sitting across from her, I saw a Lauren I barely recognized. She wasn't the golden child basking in attention. She was a 24-year-old woman, tired but trying. "I'm sorry, Emily," she said, her voice low, eyes fixed on her coffee. "I took you for granted. I let Mom and Dad pit us against each other, and I didn't see it. Her words weren't a full fix, but they were a start. She told me she'd found steady work as a cafe manager, paying her own way for the first time. I listened, cautious but open, sharing a little about my new home and foundation. We didn't hug or promise to be best friends. The wounds were too deep for that. But we talked, really talked, for the first time in years. I felt a flicker of hope, not for the sister I'd lost, but for the one she might become. Lauren and I weren't whole, but we were trying, and that was enough for now. I left the cafe lighter, knowing healing wasn't about erasing the past, but about building something new, one careful step at a time. My parents, though, hadn't changed. I heard through relatives that they'd refinanced their house to bail Lauren out again, covering her boutique's lingering debts. It was the same old pattern. Lauren's needs above all, no matter the cost. I felt a pang of sadness, not for myself, but for them, trapped in a cycle they couldn't see. I'd hoped my stand might wake them up, but some lessons are too hard to learn. I chose to focus on my own growth instead. I started pottery classes, something I'd always wanted to try, but never had the time or money for. Shaping clay on the wheel was messy, imperfect, but grounding. Each vase I crafted felt like a piece of myself, rebuilt from the ashes of that burned check. I'd sit in the studio, hands covered in clay, and feel a quiet joy I hadn't known before. Pottery wasn't just a hobby, it was a metaphor for my life, taking raw, formless pieces and molding them into something strong, beautiful mine. My foundation kept growing too, with more students learning to manage their finances. Helping them gave me purpose, a reminder that my worth wasn't tied to my family's approval. I wasn't closing the door on my parents forever, but I was opening new ones that felt right. I'd spent years in their shadow, bending to their expectations, but now I was carving my own path, one that honored the woman I was becoming. Not everyone in my family turned away. My Uncle David, a quiet man who'd always stayed on the sidelines, sent me a letter one day. "I'm proud of you, Emily," he wrote. "You're stronger than they know." His words hit deep, a rare validation I hadn't realized I needed. That letter became a touchstone, a reminder that I wasn't alone. With Sarah's friendship and my foundation's community, I was building a new kind of family, one rooted in respect, not obligation. I also started planning a trip to New Zealand, a dream I buried under years of struggle. I'd pore over travel guides, imagining hiking through green valleys, feeling the freedom of a world bigger than my past. The $1.4 million gave me the means, but my choices gave me the courage. I wasn't running from my family, I was running toward myself. Healing wasn't a destination, it was a journey, one I was ready to embrace. My parents' actions had tried to dim my light, but I was shining brighter than ever, ready for whatever came next. Looking back, the $2.5 million lottery win was a spark, but the real fire came from within. It gave me freedom, yes, freedom to pay off debts, to buy a home, to dream of New Zealand's green valleys. But standing up to my family, that was the true victory. When my mother burned that check, thinking she could burn my resolve, she didn't know she was setting me free. I learned my worth isn't negotiable, no matter who demands I prove it. My parents' betrayal, Lauren's entitlement, they showed me who they were, but more importantly, who I could be. I built a foundation to help others, found joy in pottery, and chose peace over obligation. Healing wasn't about fixing my family, it was about rebuilding myself. Some nights, I still feel the ache of what could have been, a family that saw me. But I've found my own light, brighter than their shadows. This journey taught me that courage isn't loud. It's the quiet choice to value yourself, even when it hurts. Your worth is yours to define, and no one, not family, not money, gets to take that away. I'm Emily Harper, and this is my truth. If my story struck a chord, I want to hear yours. Have you ever had to stand up to family, to draw a line to protect your peace? Maybe it was a big moment, like mine, or a quiet choice no one else saw. Share it in the comments below. Your voice matters, and together, we can build a community of strength. Let's inspire each other to keep choosing ourselves, no matter the cost. If this story moved you, hit that like button. It means more than you know. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss more stories about real people finding their way. Every view, every comment helps us grow this space where we can be honest, raw, and resilient. I've learned that healing is a journey, and I'm grateful you're here with me. Tell me, what's one boundary you've set that changed your life? Let's keep this conversation going because we're stronger together. Thank you for listening, for being part of this. Keep chasing your truth. Keep standing tall. Your story isn't over, and neither is mine. Let's write the next chapter together with courage and heart.